Well, that was fun, wasn't it? All that buildup, all that hype. And where are the Jets? They're 0-1. They are the only winless team in the AFC East at this point, and they got beat down. I mean, let's not sugarcoat this thing. They got beat down physically. That was that was tough. And even from guys like myself, Mike Luciano, and Justin Fried, who'll be joining us a little bit later on the Jet Press podcast, we even expected a loss here against the 49ers. We did not expect that. That was tough. Thank you for joining us wherever you may be joining us. I know it's late at night for a lot of you East Coasters out here, but boy, oh boy, this deserves some examination because this game, this was disheartening. I'm fine with losing this game. I'm not fine with the appalling effort in certain areas. We'll get to Aaron Rodgers and all that stuff. Of course, you can find us on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts and Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. We are there, and we're on all the big platforms. We're on YouTube. That's where you can like the stream. That's where you can subscribe. Those are both big helps. But man, oh man, let's get the chat started right away because we got John Peter Patron. A debacle. Thank goodness it's game one. I mean, if this game could have a tagline of just one singular thing, I mean that's a pretty apt summary. Liu Han D-line was drunk. That would have been that's a compliment considering how that played out. I thought this game was going to be about Aaron Rodgers, and honestly, Aaron Rodgers was kind of a sideshow in this game. We didn't really see a lot of Aaron Rodgers because he was not the main story. The main story, man, this defense. Now, again, defenses are allowed to have bad games. They're especially allowed to have bad games against good offenses like the one that won the NFC last year and came inches away from beating Patrick Mahomes and retained most of the pieces that they brought in. But I was nervous about how they perform on the expectation of I don't know how they're going to stop Christian McCaffrey, who, by the way, did not play tonight. I mean, you wouldn't have known it. You would have thought that Jordan Mason was Christian McCaffrey with the way that he was just ripping apart this Jets defensive line. That's going to be the story of the game. I mean, they held him to field goals, and as a defensive coach, like that's always been Robert Saleh. Bend but don't break. Don't give up any touchdown. Like, I get that if you view it like that, that's kind of a, I don't want to say a win, but he didn't let the game get out of hand with a bunch of touchdowns early. They kicked 6 field goals. Like the defense, especially the pass defense, in a lot of areas stood their ground, but just consistently, Jordan Mason, and these weren't big runs. He didn't have like any 40, 50-yard runs. 5 yards, 6 yards, 8 yards, 6 yards, 7 yards, over and over and over and over and over again. I mean, Brock Purdy, up until the last drive of this first half where he was really moving the ball, he only had 3 completions. Sauce Gardner, I don't know why Sauce got taken out of that game for like a couple plays. That was weird. We never really got any clarification on that. Maybe Saleh will in the press conference, but secondary mostly did their job. I know they got help with an IU drop, but they mostly held up. But man, this defensive line, you want Hassan Reddick, you win. If everybody's talking about a PR battle and no one wants to lose, Hassan Reddick won. Cost him a lot of money, but you got to spend money to make money, apparently. He won. Because without him, I know he wouldn't have helped with the run, but man, they looked lifeless. And I'm even doing that, even if I'm grading them on a curve, because I was grading them on, I'm not expecting, pressures every single play. It's Trent Williams. He might be the best tackle in the league. I'm expecting, a young defensive line with a bunch of new guys coming in. I'm like, all right, there's going to be some ebbs and flows. They're not going to just completely dominate Brock Purdy. I didn't expect Jordan Mason to just run all over, and everybody's at fault. Quinnen Williams, not his best game. Javon Kinlaw, I'd say a poor game for the most part. Michael Clemens got a sack late, but he was very, very bad for most of it. Will McDonald, did he even play? I barely noticed him. Jermaine Johnson, I didn't notice him until his one really bad penalty. That's going to be the story of the game. Like, we'll get to Rodgers and all that, but this is a defensive line game. As we welcome in Justin Fried, haven't really done a lot of Rodgers talk yet. It's been a lot of defensive line talk. I know I can assume that you're going to go and lean in on the whole John Franklin Myers trade, but my opinion, maybe this is being a little optimistic, is John Franklin Myers certainly would have helped, but with a performance like that, the wholesale, he could have one of his best games. He's not fixing that. I mean, that was probably the worst defensive line performance I've seen from a Robert Saleh coach team. I mean, they gave up, they held them to field goals, but eight scoring drives, and it was all consistent Jordan Mason runs. So, yeah, Franklin Myers would have helped, but that was the defensive line in totality just getting whacked for the entire game.
Yeah, man, that sucked. Let's just get that straight. I was hoping we'd be able to come on here and talk about, same old Jets is dead. Like the Jets prove that they can hang with the NFL's elite, with the NFC champs, and they didn't. They didn't at all. They proved that they aren't at that level right now. And I heard you mention, Aaron Rodgers kind of was a side element to this game. I thought Rodgers looked like Rodgers, minus a little mobility. I think part of that is probably a little rust working his way back. Part of it is also we're probably never going to see the 25-year-old or even 35-year-old Aaron Rodgers again, and that's a thing we have to understand. But throwing the ball, he looked fine. He looked like Aaron Rodgers. I have some nitpicking stuff with the offense. I still think the playmakers are lacking, clearly. Boy, do they need Devontae Adams in this offense. But, yeah, man, the defense is the story. Ultimately they allowed 32 points, really 29 because of that one the one turnover right in the beginning of the game. But that doesn't tell the full story. They allowed 8 consecutive scoring drives to end the game. That is the most consecutive scoring drives I believe they've ever allowed in the Robert Saleh era. Just even 8 scores in a single game is crazy. The fact that it was 8 consecutive is insane. It's ridiculous. And it starts up front with the defensive line. The defensive line was really bad. I'm going to do my best to not overreact to week 1, and that's going to be a recurring thing that I threw out there probably, just because we got to remember this is on the road against the defending NFC champs, and the Jets also didn't play their starters. Not a lot of continuity. I get it. One thing that I am going to harp on, and I am going to say that I'm very concerned about, and I don't think it's a week 1 overreaction, is the run defense. The interior run defense is bad, and it's a real problem, and I don't see a fix. I don't think Lecky Fotu fixes that. Hassan Reddick's not going to fix that. And I agree, Mike. I do think that John Franklin Myers himself would not fix that necessarily. I do think that it kind of puts a microscope on a lot of those defensive line moves that I've been told for months weren't a big deal, and that I've been harping on since April, that I've said I did not like the moves they made with the defensive line this offseason. I said multiple times I thought they downgraded in that area. I was assured that that wouldn't be an issue. I was told that a bunch of UDFAs are basically the same thing as John Franklin Myers and Bryce Huff. Turns out that's not true. Turns out when you get rid of Bryce Huff and John Franklin Myers and you don't replace them because Hassan Reddick's not here, you have a substantially worse defensive line. And we saw that, unfortunately, today. Again, I don't think necessarily those two guys fix that alone. Bryce Huff obviously does not fix the run defense, but it was just bad. It was a bad game all around. And I think that, unfortunately, this is not a situation where you can put the blame on one person. And if the games are going to be like this year, that sucks. Because last year, we can easily point to and say, hey, Zach Wilson was the problem. Also, by the way, Sauce Gardner left the game for an unknown reason. Robert Saleh
have a reason? Is it a known reason now?
Robert Saleh has just told reporters that he left the game because he was out of breath. That is the reason that we've been given. We did see Trent Williams have to go to the back for an IV because he was dehydrated. I guess, sure, man. Like, whatever. I don't think
drink some water, man.
Drink some more water. First
game I did say he was like Rosenblatt said he was on one knee and kind of going with his head down. I mean, he probably drink some water, man. It happens to all of us. You overwork yourself.
Let's get to some comments here because we appreciate you guys venting with us. We're gonna vent together. We're gonna go with the most recent, just to work our way up. Quentin Jefferson is way underappreciated. Brian on YouTube says, yes, they downgraded a defensive tackle and they paid more. They paid Javon Kinlaw significantly more money than Quentin Jefferson, and Quentin Jefferson has been better than Kinlaw every year of his career. So I completely agree. I don't think Jefferson fixed the run defense, but I think you might get a little bit more interior pressure with him. Mike, do you agree?
Woody Johnson in chat with, I believe that's Sloth from the Goonies in the profile pic.
I see this guy on Facebook all the time. Yes,
looks like Reddick has the leverage now. As I said before, Justin got on. He won.
He did, but I don't think the Jets.
I don't think he won.
I don't think the Jets cave. I don't think this changes anything. We can talk about that, but I don't think this shit changes anything with that. And I also don't think that Reddick changes everything. He definitely doesn't help the run defense. I think obviously the pass rush is better because, look, I understand it was Trent Williams. Where was Will McDonald, man?
Where was anybody?
I know where was Jermaine Johnson had a terrible game, but I've been told for months that you can just have Will McDonald replace. Bryce Huff was a system pass rusher. He was the most efficient pass rusher in the NFL. He was a system guy. You could plug in Will McDonald. He could be the same thing. I didn't see that tonight, man. I maybe we see it going forward. It was a tough matchup for him, but I didn't see that tonight.
And Bryce Huff was horrible in Philly, so nobody's winning.
Yeah,
Nobody's
it was
winning.
really bad there.
0-0 stunner. The first 3 drives were good. After that, poop emoji.
It did get worse.
Yeah, it did get worse. I mean, again, they were hanging in there. And again, like I said before, I think generally the pass defense did their job.
Yeah. One thing I want to note, and I was talking about this with the people I was watching the game with, this Jets team, specifically under Robert Saleh, has a knack for snowballing when bad shit happens. And that's a real problem. And I think we saw that tonight. Shit just kind of piles on top of other shit. And you're not going to win games doing that. Like, you have to be able to handle and deal with adversity. And it feels like with this Jets team, when stuff goes wrong, when there's a lucky bounce for the other team, the Breece Hall fumble. I mean, I guess they did respond well to that, but the tipped interception from Rodgers, like the field goal just kind of bouncing in. There were a few lucky breaks in favor of the Niners this week in tonight's game. And I don't think the Jets handled them very well. And I think they kind of just piled on top of their own mistakes with more mistakes. And that has been a frequent thing, a frequent issue in the Robert Saleh era. And we both defended Robert Saleh a lot, Mike. But, you got to look in the mirror at some point if this is happening a lot with the same team and the same coaching staff, maybe it is the coaching staff. And maybe that is a lack of leadership, lack of accountability. I hate to use buzzwords like that, but I do think that needs to be talked about.
And then I want to get to one more comment before we kind of go on to our little a couple other topics I want to get to. Anthony Matthew. Come on, bro. It's the 49ers. The O-line and D-line are legit. The O-line was actually one of their weaknesses coming in. You wouldn't have known it, but it would have been a battle for the Jets D-line to contain the run. It's one game. Calm down. Like that's what I'm wrestling with. Like, I did not – we both predicted the Jets to lose, but A, we thought it'd be closer, and B, our main concern was how are they going to contain Christian McCaffrey?
Yeah.
And then they didn't – and then Jordan Mason, again – If no one told you Christian McCaffrey was playing and you just saw the box score, you're like, man, McCaffrey ran all over these guys. Pretty good game for him. Wasn't even him. Jordan Mason. Yeah. That's what scared me more than anybody about the 49ers. It wasn't Brock Purdy, who, again, like, I want to keep harping on it, but, like, the pass defense I thought was pretty good today.
They had their flaws,
just 6-yard Jordan Mason run after 6-yard Jordan Mason run. It beat you down. And, again, like, if you look at the box score, the Jets had 3 sacks. 2 of them were one of them was Sauce and one of them was Tony Adams, and they were just like scrambles where Brock Purdy ran out of time, and I think one was like right at the line of scrimmage. And then the last one was Michael Clemens when it was like a 30-point game on the last drive. Like, who cares? So if effectively he was not, and that's the whole book on Purdy is you pressure him, he's bad. You leave him alone, he's great, and couldn't get pressure. So even grading on a curve with the Trent Williams factor in there, very disappointing. Now, Reddick would have helped the pass rush. He wouldn't have changed the outcome of this game. They wouldn't have won this game with Hassan Reddick, but it would have been closer.
And look, I think there's some truth to what Anthony is saying in that it's important not to overreact. Obviously, it's week 1. That's what overreactions are for. Therefore, week 1, everyone is going to overreact to what's going on. But, like you said, Mike, the 49ers offensive line is not particularly great outside of Trent Williams. The Jets defensive line is supposed to be their strength. I know they don't have Hassan Reddick. It's still supposed to be their strength. We talked all offseason, all summer about look at how much depth they have. I mean, look, 3
and even Quinnen. Didn't hear much about Quinnen this game. He had the one nice play early on, and then
get a pressure.
Not bad game, but not one of his best.
I think he was getting doubled a lot. And unfortunately, you just don't have the interior pass rush outside of that because Javon Kinlaw didn't do much. And again, I'm not shocked by that because Javon Kinlaw didn't do much with the 49ers either. I watched the guy at San Francisco.
Shanahan's also had a thing, though, too. Like, Aaron Donald had some of his worst games against the 49ers. He's got a way of, like, neutralizing guys like that. And again, when you pair that with a guy who practiced against Robert Saleh's defense every day for 4 years on top of being the next wunderkind offensive mind, I'm not surprised they moved the ball. It's just there's nothing more demoralizing in football than when you just get the ball run down your throat all the time. And Christian McCaffrey, you tip your cap, you go, he's a Hall of Famer. You let the chips fall where they may. When it's Jordan Mason, you're like, all right, this is a problem.
And then on the rare occasions, and I don't even say the rare occasions, on the occasion where the Jets would get the Niners exactly where they want them. Because what do we always say about this Jets defense, about Robert Saleh defenses? You have to sacrifice run defense for pass rush. And the Jets thrive in 3rd and long. That is where they want their opponents. When the Jets did get the 49ers in 3rd and long, they didn't get the pass rush. They didn't get the pressure on the quarterback. And Purdy was able to find open guys. Because like you said, Mike, when Brock Purdy's not pressured, he can make some pretty good plays. But if you get pressure on the dude, he has shown time and time again that he'll make mistakes. And unfortunately, the Jets were not able to get pressure. Good comment here from Josh Curran. We could talk about the offensive line a little bit if you want to, because I think it was a tale of two different styles for the offensive line. Josh said pass protection was a positive, fantastic change of pace from the last few years. I agree. I think the pass protection held up pretty well against a very talented 49ers defense.
Yeah, no complaints there. I mean, Tyron Smith had that one where Bosa beat him early on, but he's Bosa. He's going to do that. And then outside, how many times did Rodgers get sacked? Like once or twice?
He only got hit a couple of times. It was very, very, I think he only got sacked once.
The Floyd one earlier, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was just the Floyd one. He got hit a couple of times, but not much. The run blocking, though, that was an issue. And we'll see if that maybe that starts to gel as time goes on. It's, obviously, I think the big thing to remember, at least with the Jets offense, this is an excuse more for the offense than the defense. This is a very new look offense. These guys have not played together. Obviously, you play together in the summer and training camp. They did not play in the preseason. The Jets did not play any of their starters in the preseason. I would expect the 49ers defense that is relatively the same as it's been the last couple of years against a very new look Jets offense to have the advantage over in that situation, because these guys have not played together. I get that. That excuse cannot apply for the Jets defense, because the Jets defense is relatively the same as what it was last year as well. But I do think that that's an important distinction to make with the offense. The run blocking, I'm hoping that'll improve, but the pass protection was definitely encouraging.
You want to go talk about Rodgers?
Let's talk Rodgers.
I honestly, this is going to sound weird for his first debut. I don't have much to add about Aaron Rodgers. He looked like last year in Green Bay Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
Which, again, the thought was this team everywhere else is so good. Even if you get that over Zach Wilson, here come the playoffs. Now, in the NFC, I think they'd still be fine. In this deep AFC, I mean, every game counts. I'm more nervous about it now than I was, especially after how Buffalo and Miami looked. But you saw, I mean, the interception wasn't 100% his fault. Probably could have been a little better ball. It got tipped. It was a tight window throw. I don't think there's anybody. I think that just happened.
It wasn't a turnover-worthy play. It was not a turnover-worthy play.
Okay. Now, is that official or just your thought?
Oh, I don't think that's going to count as a turnover-worthy play. Okay. It wasn't like he forced it into a tight window and he threw off his left foot. He wasn't set as he threw it, but 99% of the time that does not result in an interception.
One thing I'm not doing this year is people go, oh, we're going to hack it, whatever. We know it's been written about. Rodgers is basically, this is Rodgers'
Correct.
Offense. So the concerning thing is, Garrett Wilson looked really good, had some really nice catches.
Yep.
Look, Alan Lazard had that horrible drop early on, and then he had 6 catches, 2 touchdowns. And
some of it
you can't fret too much about that. That was his best game as a Jet.
Yes. Some of it was garbage time, but he played well, I guess, in totality, if you look at the entire game. Lazard
had a nice deep ball for Rodgers' first touchdown.
Yeah, that dude. And that's my biggest takeaway is Aaron Rodgers is still Aaron Rodgers. That he has less mobility. I don't think we're ever going to see that version of him again pre-injury, but that's to be expected. He still throws like Aaron Rodgers. He still plays like Aaron Rodgers. We saw that. I mean, I don't think it's a stretch to say this was one of the best quarterback performances the Jets have seen over the last couple of years. And he went.
Look at those numbers on the screen. Think about that.
But it truly was. There were some balls that were thrown where I'm like, damn, I've not seen a Jets quarterback make that throw in a long time.
Ever.
Maybe ever, honestly.
That first Garrett Wilson throw. When the last time that happened? Ryan Fitzpatrick, 9 years ago?
That throw to Lazard down the sideline where he just zipped that in there. I'm like, how does he do that? There is a handful of guys in the league that are making that throw. And I said this on Twitter, and this is, I think, important perspective for Jets fans to keep. That just because they lost, pretty decisively in this game, I think the final score is a little generous to them. They lost more decisively than the final score would suggest. They still have Aaron Rodgers, and my takeaway from this game was Aaron Rodgers still looks like Aaron Rodgers. We're going to learn a lot more about who this Jets team is over the next few games. I saw a comment from somebody, as Brendan said this, a lot of teams look bad week 1. Brendan on YouTube, he said, a lot of teams look bad week 1. Maybe preseason is important. Starters should play a little. I don't know as much about that second part. I think I am still in favor of resting the starters. I think a lot of teams have kind of trended toward that direction because,
if Rodgers got hurt this preseason,
right?
think about what would have happened.
I think it makes sense if you're to sacrifice early games rust. You're going to be like, okay, we're going to be a little rusty in the first couple of games, but hey, we're going to have our starters hopefully moving forward. I see the trade-off there, and I get it. But you're right. A lot of teams did look very bad this week, specifically offenses. That's what's more concerning to me is that the defense was the part of the Jets that was lacking a lot today. And a lot of the rust that we saw from other teams around the league was quarterback play, was offenses. But it is still important to remember. I think we're going to learn a lot more, when this Jets team plays the Titans and when they play the Patriots. A decisive win over one of those teams or over the Broncos or even two decisive wins, and we're back. And we're totally back. And we're talking about this Jets team making a playoff run and maybe even further. But if they squeak out victories against some shitty teams or even lose one or two of those games, we're going to have some really difficult conversations. And the seat for Robert Saleh, the seat for everybody, is going to get really hot really quick.
The problem with the offense that I want to focus on, number one, the horrible Brees game. I know he had the touchdown, but Brees was not good. Again, not a lot of blocking, but 54 yards on 16 carries, including a 16-yard run. So that was most of it. He had the fumble, which was only his second career fumble, but it counts. Can't do that. I know it's Fred Warner hitting you, but he can't fumble. He never got out of first gear. And Brees, how do I phrase this? Because I like Brees. How do I phrase this? He's as frustrating an elite running back as there is. Like, he reminds me a lot of the first couple of years of Saquon Barkley, where it's like 2 yards, 1 yard, 2 yards, 1 yard, 50 yards.
It sounds
2 yards, 1 yard. Like,
sounds a little like prime Dalvin Cook as well.
Well, again, now it's a compliment if he becomes prime Dalvin Cook.
It's not a bad thing. Prime Dalvin Cook was a beast.
Yeah, but like there's in between, and even last year, like in between the 50-yard runs, there's a lot of grinding out tough. You remember that whole Robert Saleh? He needs to get better at grinding out the tough yards thing. Like he's not a perfect player. He's really, really good, and he's going to touch the ball more than any Jet that isn't Aaron Rodgers this year. But there are some things he needs to improve on, that being one of them. And number two, Justin, I know he's on a pitch count. Like, did Mike Williams even get a target?
No, he did not. He was not.
How many snaps did he play? I barely even noticed him.
I'm going to guess around 12.
12?
Maybe
10. I know he's recovered, but 12?
It's my guess, yeah.
I mean, it took until well into the third quarter for someone who was not Breece Hall or Garrett Wilson to get a touch from scrimmage. Well into the game was almost pretty much over by then. That
was one of my other biggest takeaways, is that, boy, they still lack playmakers. They really lack playmakers. I didn't expect Mike Williams to play a ton. I'm not shocked that he was.
It's supposed to be him, though, right? That was the.
Yeah, the expectation is that it's still going to be him. It's just not him in week one. You want to get him involved.
Oakland didn't even have a catch. Malachi Corley basically did nothing.
We could talk about Malachi Corley because we haven't really talked about that a lot on the show. I was under the impression there was a decent chance that he would be a healthy scratch for this game. The Jets had to make other moves, so he wasn't, but he might as well have been a healthy scratch because I think he had 1 or 2 snaps and he did not get targeted. He also did not play on special teams, so he was virtually a healthy scratch. That pick, look, we'll see what happens in the future. Right now, there's definitely other directions they could have gone in that pick, other receivers they could have targeted who would be making more of an immediate impact.
Not look like Darius Stewart immediately. Yeah.
Right. And that's not to say that Malachi Corley can't be a good professional football player, because he can be. But he's clearly a work in progress. The route running is still a problem, and the Jets do not trust him in that area. And it's, I don't know, man. Like they really lack playmakers. A good point here from Brian. And I think this is a fair discussion. He said, I think Simpson, Tippmann, and AVT should have played at least 2 drives together in the preseason. That's just me.
Yeah, AVT was bad.
AVT was rough. And it's you don't want to be too hard on the guys coming off a torn Achilles. It is very tough.
Is everybody on this team going off a torn Achilles? Like
it's unfortunate. I think I overlooked that fact about AVT, is that I kind of just expected him to pick up where he left off. It was a rough game for him. I thought Tippmann kind of had his issues as well. I didn't notice Simpson as much, but we'll rewatch and see what happened. But the entire offensive line did not get a push in the ground game. Yes, Breece Hall did not have a particularly good game, and I think that is something that's definitely true. But the offensive line, the run blocking was bad. And that honestly, it tanked the entire offense because, you want to fault Hackett, fault Rodgers play calling, fault whatever. Like, if you can't run the ball, man, like, you are as one-dimensional as it gets, and you're not going to be able to do much on offense. And then the other part of it is they barely had the ball. What was the time of possession final? Because it was a crazy discrepancy. 38 minutes to 19 minutes, Mike. 38 minutes to 19 minutes. And that's because the Jets couldn't stop the run.
Tyrod had the last couple.
Yeah, and it was garbage time for the last, that last drive was like one of the longest Jets drives of the game, and it was just garbage time. And that's a product of you can't run the ball and you cannot stop the run. You're going to lose the time of possession battle pretty much every single time when you do that. Football has evolved a lot over the years. It has changed so much over the last few decades. That is still a universal truth. You need to be able to run the ball, and you need to be able to stop the run. And if you can't do that, you're going to get games like this.
Especially nowadays, where I think if you watch basketball, like, you know how there's kind of been more of a movement to go like back to the basket centers because everybody got so small.
Yeah.
So they just thought, hey, let's put a big giant 7-foot, 280-pound guy down there. No one's big enough to stop him. I feel like there's a movement in the NFL now where everybody, because it's all nickel is now base and 6 DBs, 2 high shell, just hang back, no explosive plays. Now, like, offensive lines are getting bigger, running backs are getting bigger again. Like, you got to run the ball, man. They're the most rush, I believe, since 2008, 2024, week 1 had the most rushing yards. Now, part of that is a lot more quarterbacks who can run, Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Jane Daniels, but you got to be able, and not to get old conservative stuff, like you got to run the ball, man. And the Jets can. That was the only reason they didn't win one game last year was because Brees Hall was running the football pretty well.
Yep.
But I will say this, though. For a brand new defensive line for the 49ers, like, they played really well, too.
They did. Javon Harper, I think we might have underestimated their run defense, or either that or the Jets run block. It was just awful.
I didn't. Like, if you talk to 49ers fans, that and the corners were the concerns this year.
The interior of that defensive line, I did not think was a particularly strong run defending duo. Javon Harper is a fantastic pass rusher. Run defense, not great. Malik Collins, great pass rusher, not a great run defender. But obviously they had Fred Warner, and when you have Fred Warner, it's not going to matter. But I was going to say, speaking of big running backs, Mike, where was Braylon Allen?
Oh, we'll get to that because I want to go through a couple comments in chat as we move on, including one about him. Adrian Gutierrez, the Jets should have kept Huff and did JFK, the 35th president. He meant JFM, John Franklin Myers, but I mean, yeah, I wish JFK didn't get assassinated. Yeah, I mean, you know what? I can't in good conscience support a team that's a necromancer.
Weirdly, this isn't the first time we've talked about the Kennedys in relation to the Jets over the last few months.
Yeah, we're the Warren Commission of Football podcast. Put that on the YouTube channel. Adrian Gutierrez, again, he had a couple comments here. Saleh got out-coached, yeah. We like him, but yeah. And again, Shanahan out-coaches a lot of people, but yeah.
He coached circles around Saleh, absolutely.
Yep. Jets were not ready to play. Yeah, this is even more concerning. According to Samini, per Brian, Mike Williams had 4 snaps. 4.
Were they all on that one drive then? Because I feel like when they were driving,
why even activate him if you're going to do that?
I agree. We might as well elevate Brownlee if you're going to play him 4 snaps. What's the
point? Was it to like scare him?
I thought he played closer to 10, but 4 is nuts. I really think because he was being used on that one scoring drive that they had, the one long touchdown drive early in the game in the first half. I saw Williams out there a few times. That might have been the only drive. I mean, I don't think he played in the second half. Actually, now that I think about it, yeah, that's crazy.
I was expecting big things for Williams. I'm now begging if he's not good because Lazard's not going to be this every week. If he doesn't have games like Lazard had today. This is going to be a rough one.
Lazard today was what they hope Mike Williams is.
Yeah.
The bigger issue to me is that they drafted Malachi Corley to be their starting slot receiver, and he's not going to see the field much as a rookie, probably.
He's not even close. Larry Edwards, who I think is a 49ers fan, who you Bay Area people. I remember when the Raiders beat them last year, we had a lot of Raider fan invasion. Area people love
I like 49ers fans. I was fortunate enough to cover the 49ers and Raiders during my time covered Bay Area sports. I'm not going to comment on Raiders fans, but I do like 49ers fans.
Well, I don't like them tonight. Kyle took Saleh to class tonight.
Whoa, wait. Saleh, is that Mo? He took Mo Saleh to class?
Mohamed Saleh, the Liverpool player. Brian Sternbeck, Jets had 199 total yards of offense for Tyrod Taylor. Now, part of that was they never had the ball. Part of that was they couldn't run. And part of that was Rodgers played B+, B regular.
Yeah, it was a fine game.
Fine, yeah. But he needed, if they had any chance, I needed to see an A game out of him, and I didn't get it. I'm not disappointed, but and then here's the comment I want to get to. MTO back for season 2 here. What did this rookie class do today? Why did it take the garbage time to break in Braylon Allen, the RB2? Why not use Corley in short yardage instead of the predictable Wilson target?
You're not going to see.
Look at this rookie class, who again, coming off the draft, we liked a lot. Olu Fashinu's not going to play redshirt year. Fine. We can go over the merits of that, especially after Brock Bowers looked really good, by the way, and Tyler Conklin did nothing. But okay.
Hey, I'm not going to blame. I'm not going to full Conklin.
Yeah, but Fashanu looks like he's going to be pretty good. That's fine. Corley and Allen, and again, Allen. Corley, I was concerned about because we didn't really see a lot of him in the preseason, and there have been reports he's not there was sketchy stuff. Allen was like the star of the preseason. He was, if you had to pick one star from the preseason, it was probably him.
Yeah.
Big guy, aggressive. He kind of got that swagger back from his first 2 years at Wisconsin. And this is Nathaniel Hack. He always rotates his backs. And we didn't really see him at all. And I get not overwhelming him, a rookie from Wisconsin, Monday night 49. I get you don't want him to play half the game, but I mean, that offense wasn't working. I mean, maybe try giving Corley an end around. Maybe try Braylon Allen up the middle. All they were doing was running off left guard with Breece Hall anyway. Why not give Allen one drive?
Yeah.
See if he's okay. Like it's not super egregious. It's certainly not the reason they lost the game, but it's one of those things last year where it's just like, why not at least try it? Like, it's not working. Like, it won't hurt you. At least give it a whirl.
Yeah, I was confused by the lack of Braylon Allen. He was great in the preseason. I don't think it was a situation where it was like, oh, he was great against backups. Like, dude showed me he could play, and it was the little things with him too. I was very, very impressed with Braylon Allen in the preseason this summer. And what's confusing to me is you drafted him to be your short yardage guy. You drafted him to be a third down guy that you can trust out there in pass protection. They just weren't using him. They just didn't. They had many opportunities in short yardage situations to use him. Remember those the third and 1 and 4th and 1? Like, they don't have Braylon Allen in the game. 2-point conversion. They run it up the gut with Breece Hall. The entire reason you drafted a 245-pound running back was to use in those situations. Why wasn't he out there? Where was Braylon Allen? Why was he not on the field? I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I love Breece Hall, and I think Breece Hall still believe he's one of the best running backs in the NFL. This was not a particularly great game for him. And then you're using him in a situation where you drafted a guy to play that role, and he's just not being used. So that was confusing to me. With Corley, my expectations are about as low as they can get. I don't expect anything from him this year, realistically. Barring injury, he's not going to play very much at all. But I agree with you. Why not do a little designed play for him? That was my takeaway from the summer, from the preseason. I was saying this about again, people were shitting on me when I was like, yeah, Malachi Corley might be a healthy scratch, might not play much. And the reason was because if you watch his preseason tape, almost every single target or every single touch was a manufactured touch. They were trying to find ways to get the ball in his hands.
Because he's never run a real route. Like, correct. Western Kentucky does not run NFL routes. They run crossers like 45 times a game. They run go routes, and then they got him the ball on screens.
Yes. They do not trust him as a route runner right now at all. They do not trust him to run routes. So he's not going to be playing over Xavier Gibson, even though Gibson didn't do anything. I don't even think Gibson was targeted, but he's not going to be playing over Gibson. They don't have a starting slot receiver right now. It's Xavier Gibson by default. Ideally, you trade for Devontae Adams at the deadline if the Jets are, get their head out of their asses and they're still in contention. And then, boom, now you have Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson. You could stick either of those guys in the slot, and that's fine. Probably Garrett. But that, I mean, yeah.
Gary?
Right? What?
I think you called him Gary.
Gary Wilson. Gary Wilson.
Gary Wilson. That sounds like a guy who does roofing.
I think I said Garrett. I think I just said it quick. But yeah, you're not gonna see Malachi Corley. And when the Jets made that pick, I didn't want to jump all over it. Like, I didn't hate the pick, first of all. I didn't hate Malachi.
Neither did I.
There were other players that I wanted. There were other receivers that I wanted, Roman Wilson being one of them. We talked about that, I remember at the time. There were other wide receivers I would have preferred the Jets targeted, but I didn't hate Malachi Corley. The issue that I have with a player like Malachi Corley, or just, his archetype, is that there are many more examples of his archetype of player not working in the NFL than there are of him working. For every Deebo Samuel, there's 3 Amari Rodgers. And unfortunately, I don't want to say he's trending towards Amari Rodgers than Deebo, but he is. Right now, he's trending in Amari Rodgers' direction. Now, Deebo
I have a rule called the Denard Robinson theorem, or the Cordero Patterson theorem. Anytime you hear a play, like a skill position player, like he's a jack of all trades, we're going to use him in a bunch of different ways, like they're done. Yeah. Anytime you hear that, they're done.
I kind of agree.
He's a running back and receiver. Well, that tells me you're half a running back and half a receiver, and you can't get in with either.
And we're gonna talk about the Deebo Samuel comparisons. Deebo Samuel had 800 yards in his rookie season. He was a gadget guy, but he wasn't as much of a project, and he proved that very quickly that he wasn't as much of a project.
And Deebo went to South Carolina, who actually used him like a real wide receiver. Shanahan just chooses to use him this way. Yes. Like, they used Corley like Deebo, so if he's not used like Deebo, he almost reminds me like Antonio Gibson, who's a wide receiver in college converted to running back, which is concerning because you drafted a wide receiver.
There was a lot of Cordero Patterson vibes in Malachi Corley. A lot, like, they have a very similar build.
That's not good.
Yeah, man. I mean, and the big difference between the two right now is that Cordero Patterson was an all-pro kick returner. Malachi Corley can't even win that job.
Isaiah Davis
Isaiah Davis is
being
back
out here.
with
Yeah.
Gibson.
A couple more comments. Larry Edwards again. Can't wait to see Greeny. It's must-see TV. We're Jets fans, and sometimes I think Greenberg can go a little like.
I agree.
I know it's a ratings thing, but like, okay,
the takes are going to be very tiresome.
Yeah.
I hope there's no take. Well, there's going to be because
It's all going to be Rodgers' fault.
That's what I'm saying. I'm hoping that people aren't like, oh, Aaron Rodgers is washed. And I'm like, what game did you watch? What are you talking about? Because that was not my.
No, there's going to be it's his ego. I saw a guy on Twitter like they're the Colorado of the NFL. I'm like, this is not a Colorado situation.
I didn't see this. This is good. Brian said in chat that the Jets say that Michael Carter could have returned to the game if he needed. So that is some good news. He left with an ankle injury. He had been dealing with an ankle injury for most of the summer. So that is good news. I wanted to point that out because I didn't see that before. I've not looked at my phone enough while we've been recording. But
right. Let's run down the list here. There was a lot of good ones here. Thank you so much for using this chat. It is blowing up. Thank you guys for this. MTO is our personnel grouping guy. He said, I hear a lot of Conklin and Rucker as this 2 tight end class. I guess you mean, using them a lot. Where was Rucker? Wasn't he a stud blocking tight end? Like I don't want to harp on that too much just because like outside of Wilson and Lazard, nobody did anything.
Yeah.
Like that's a point where if they're like 4-3 and the offense is like 12th in the league and there's ticky-tack stuff, like then I could revisit that. But like barely anything worked. So like I don't think using Jeremy Ruckert more is really gonna make like we talked about Corley a lot. Like getting him a couple touches a game is not really gonna wholesale change everything, but that we'll keep an eye on that one.
I do say I wish they got Tyler Conklin more involved in the passing game. As you know, I'm a big Tyler Conklin fan. As for Jeremy Ruckert, I mean, look, I'll preface this by saying that I am currently wearing a Jeremy Ruckert jersey. For those who don't know, played against him in high school. That's pretty cool. Shout out Longwood High School. We beat Lindenhurst in the Suffolk Championship. But anyway, as for Jeremy Ruckert, yeah, I think I don't know if it's fans that overrate him or whatever. I think he's a below average tight end too. At best right now. I definitely don't think he's a stud blocking tight end. I don't even think he has that reputation. Do people think he's
supposed to be? That was the trait because he wasn't a receiver, so
he's definitely blocking. I definitely wouldn't call him a stud blocking tight end. I think he's a fine blocking tight end and a poor receiving tight end is how I would classify him, which is fine, I guess. I don't know. It's what it is. I think Tyler Conklin's good, and I do wish they got him more involved in the offense. But yeah, I agree. That's not the biggest reason. Like, again, we could harp on the little things. We could talk about these little things, but realistically, they lost the game because they couldn't stop the running because they couldn't run the ball. And
it's not like last year where just like nothing worked. So like anything was fair game. Like this is a little,
Yeah.
Brian, again, assuming Hackett was calling plays tonight, he left a lot to be desired. I give him a C-. This is a tough one. Like we do make jokes about Rodgers is the OC, but like it's been confirmed in writing by a lot of people that Rodgers can kind of overrule Hackett on a lot of things. I do think Hackett was calling a lot of the let's run it down by 2 scores things. And again, I get it in the sense that as a coordinator, what you want to do is give your best players a chance to make plays. And getting Breece Hall the ball a lot, like we went into the game saying we want Breece Hall to get 25 touches. Like it's not a bad strategy, just like he has good ideas sometimes, Hackett. He just executes them badly. He's they have an ideas guy. They need like an execution guy.
Yeah.
Not an executioner because that sounds very morbid, but somebody who can figure out ways to get Breece Hall more meaningful touches than, well, let's just keep running it. Eventually he's got to break one, right?
Yeah. I know. I'm with you. I don't think that I don't think Nathaniel Hackett called a particularly great game, but ultimately, again, if you can't run the ball, your offense is going to be very limited.
What's he supposed to do is not run ever?
Yeah, your offense
airway. Like, what's he supposed to do?
I definitely think they could have done more, and I think that especially running it, as much as they did down 2 scores when it wasn't working, it clearly wasn't working, wasn't great. I do think that they could have gotten a guy like Tyler Conklin more involved and maybe found more creative ways to get Garrett Wilson the ball in the second half because the 49ers were keying in on him. But yeah, if you can't run the ball, your offense is very handicapped. Like they are very limited in what they could do. And unfortunately, the Jets could not run the ball tonight.
And then MTO, speaking of Corley again, because this relates to a point that I think is one of the problems with the roster. He goes, I don't hate the pick because if you're taking a wide receiver high in round 3, you would hope the OC has a plan for him. The Jets have, we always talk about Robert Saleh guys and like players that fit his scheme. They get that on defense. Guys that fit the scheme perfect. Tonight notwithstanding, a lot of the time they've been right. Sauce, Reed, Michael Carter, Jermaine Johnson to a degree, like Quinnen they kept, like Quincy Williams, who was an afterthought in Jacksonville. They brought him here. He's great. Like on defense, they got it down to a science of how they want to play. Sometimes it doesn't work, but they know how they want to play. Offense, again, because they don't even know what they want to be offensively, and I still don't know what they want to be. Are they a Breece Hall-led team, or is Rodgers going to throw it 40 times every game? I still don't know. Because of that, they just take high upside athletes and they're like, well, they'll figure it out. That's a better thing to do on defense, where you just take a crazy athlete. You're like, is he a linebacker, just a pass rusher, an edge rusher? Do we put him on? Like, you have more freedom to do that on the defensive side. When you do it on offense, which is what the Jets have done, you look very disjointed, and guys don't really have roles, or just a bunch of guys doing stuff. And that's what the offense looked like today. It was a bunch of guys doing stuff, made marginally better by Aaron Rodgers being not like the mercurial Hall of Famer Aaron Rodgers, but being an above average NFL quarterback. Like, all right, they scored 19 points, even counting the garbage time thing. Zach Wilson's in there. Do they score more than 7 points? I don't think they do.
Probably not. Because some of those throws Aaron Rodgers made were pretty ridiculous.
And then it's like 40-7, and then we're really on here getting mad. So like that's the problem with this offense. Like it will be better than last year. Have no fear. But only just because Rodgers, even in this compromise, for lack of a better word, state, can still just make something happen sometimes. Because if he's not there, it's the same thing as last year. Breece Hall's good, Garrett Wilson's good, and then Mike Williams is supposed to be good, but didn't play.
I'm not going to get worried about Mike Williams yet. I would not expect him to play a lot. I just
wanted more than 4.
Hold on, Mike. Hold on. I am upset and a little annoyed that he played 4 snaps. Why even activate him if that's the case? I expected him to play closer to probably 12-ish, but also they didn't have the ball much. We'll see what happens going forward with Mike Williams. But yeah, the issues that they had with the offense are still there that they had last year are still there. Obviously, they've upgraded a quarterback. They seemingly have upgraded the offensive line. The pass protection was a lot better tonight than it was for most of last season, but you still don't have playmakers. And that is an issue. The entire offense last season was revolving around Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall. And like not even just revolving, like it was them. There was no other offense. That was basically the same tonight. Obviously, Lazard ended up getting involved more later in the game, but for the first, like you said, 2.5 quarters, the only players who gained positive yards for the Jets were Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson. Nobody else even had a catch or a rush attempt. That can't be the case moving forward. Like you just can't. You have to get more guys involved, and I don't know if they have the personnel for that right now. We get to another comment here. Jeff said that stop the run, same problem last year. I do want to say this. I think the Jets' run defense issues last year were overblown. The Jets were 13th, I think, in rushing yards allowed per carry. Like they were fine. They weren't.
And that's being down a lot with the defense being on the field all the time because the offense can't score.
They allowed a lot of yards because they were always getting run on because teams were always leading and teams were always, had the ball. But in terms of efficiency, they weren't particularly bad. I think it was worse clearly than their pass defense. And I think that's why some fans got upset because, you're comparing it to the heights of their pass defense, which is the best in the NFL. Their run defense is going to look worse. Tonight was a different story. Tonight was a problem. Tonight was not like middle of the pack. No, tonight was really bad. Like
when Quinnen looks bad, that's when you get worried.
Could not stop the run to save their lives tonight. And I led off the show. First thing I said when I joined was, there's gonna be some things where I'm like chalking it up to this and that, and I could see the light at the end of the tunnel. I struggle to see the light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to the run defense. I don't see a solution. Lecky Fotu, is that your solution? It's not.
That's a month from now.
It's in 3 more games. Is it going to be Hassan Reddick? Is that your solution? Sure.
It's not Hassan Reddick. That's what they think it is. Oh boy.
Right. It's not going to be Hassan Reddick. And again, does this give him more leverage? Maybe. I don't think it's going to matter. I don't think Joe Douglas is a man of principle. He would be going against everything that he has done throughout his entire tenure with the Jets if he were to just panic and extend his.
Well, why would you want to go against that, Justin? I mean,
ultimately, on paper, and that's the unfortunate.
The Tao of Joe Douglas. Oh my God.
Unfortunately, on paper is the thing we have to keep saying. But the Jets roster should be good, and if it's not good, we got to point to the coaching staff.
One last comment before we move on to kind of looking ahead to next week.
Sure.
because, man, there's a lot of dead horses to beat in this game. It feels like you could just replay a stream from last year and just edit our AI, our voices to make us say Rodgers instead of Wilson for a lot
I
of
will
things.
say, like this, it feels different. Like this is, maybe I'm just, I don't know. Doing this for my job has made me emotionally connect less. I don't know. I feel like I'm able to logically think of it more than if I was, like 6-7 years ago, just like, oh my God, the world's ending. But I don't feel the same after this loss as I did a lot of last year's losses. Like they just felt hopeless. I have hope still. Like I'm able to, in my mind, be like, look, this was a 13-point loss. Again, it should have been worse, but it was a 13-point loss. I'm going to use that to fit my narrative here against the defending NFC champs on the road, week 1. A lot of change, a lot of turnover with the roster, specifically the offense. I don't think the world's ending because they lost. I do think it was a very decisive loss, and I would have rather they showed a little bit more competitiveness, especially on defense. But I'm not going to say it's comparable to losses last year where it just was like, okay, it's the same thing over and over again. Nothing is changing. There is no hope. I don't feel that way now. Now, if they come out and put a stinker up against Tennessee, yeah, I might feel that way. But I don't feel that way right now.
I mean, I have more hope even with this. As angry as we are, not angry, but like, man, that sucked. As much of that as we are, I still feel more hopeful now than after the win with the crazy Xavier Gibson return last year.
I agree. Yes, I completely agree.
We were talking about trading for Jameson, Kyler Murray, and stuff. It was bleak. Remember that?
At least now, weirdly, I'm in a spot where I'm like, man, the rest of this roster's got some flaws, but hey, the Jets got a quarterback. It's such a bizarre feeling. I've never felt that way. In my time watching the Jets, I've never had the feeling of, boy, this defense has some flaws. Boy, this offense has some flaws, but they got a good quarterback. Like it's hard to process that feeling.
The John Morton year where Josh McCown was like 70% completion.
Yeah, I was like,
hey, this actually works. Like he's not amazing, but it works. Like
there were weeks where we were saying, as long as Josh McCown plays like this, the Jets have a chance to win.
And they were like 3-2 to start the year before it all.
Josh McCown was like 5th or 4th in Pro Bowl voting amongst quarterbacks at a point.
And then last comment before we go to our next segment, MTO again. Even Will McDonald looks lost. He's this decade's. He met Aaron Mabin. Well, he has sacks, so he's therefore better than Aaron Mabin.
Oh, Aaron Mabin had sacks with the Jets that one year.
He had none with the Bills though, but
yeah, with Vernon Golston would be the guy.
Vernon Golston had none with the Jets.
Yeah,
and he was 6th overall. I mean, that was
yep.
But yeah, McDonald probably the most disappointed because he was not going against Trent Williams a lot. He was going against Colton McKivitz a lot, who was not very good, and we still didn't see much of anything. I know Clemens played a lot. Clemens did not have a very good game either. But
Clemens is a fucking zero. I'm sorry. I don't even want sorry to be vulgar, man. That man, he is. I've tried.
Too slow to be an edge. Too small to play inside. Classic tweener.
He's a net negative every time he's on the field. Like he offers nothing. He was getting pushed around in run defense. He offers 0 as a pass rusher. This is the guy, by the way. And again, I don't want to harp on the John Franklin Myers thing so much. John Franklin Myers had 58 pressures last year, Mike. You know who had? You know what Michael Clemens had? 8 pressures all season. He had 8 pressures.
Supposedly slimmed down. It was supposed to unlock him.
Who the Jets are relying to replace John Franklin Myers. I cannot explain I don't think the average fan realizes how much of a downgrade that is. John Franklin Myers was a really important part of this defense. Really important part. Like vastly underrated. He had this, I'm pretty sure he had like the same number of pressures as Jermaine Johnson last year. And he was playing interior more than Johnson was. He was really good.
Now he has to go die on the vine over in Denver. Or doesn't matter how good he plays, they're going to be.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. But Clemens is such a net negative. Like he is such a net negative when he was out there. And yeah, McDonald, I will say McDonald, he did line up a lot against Trent Williams. Earlier in the game, I think they were having him more against McKivitz. But like second half, at least from just watching, I'd have to look back.
There's no chance he's winning that.
I noticed more Jermaine Johnson against Colton McKivitz, which it's even more concerning that Jermaine Johnson couldn't beat Colton McKivitz. I don't know if I vocalized this on the show, but and this is not, I like Jermaine Johnson. I think he's a good player. I think he got a little overhyped last year because he made a Pro Bowl. He was, I believe, the 7th alternate at edge rusher. He's not a Pro Bowl caliber edge rusher. There's a lot better in the NFL. He's a very well-rounded player. He's generally a good run defender. He's never going to be a star pass rusher. He's a good pass rusher. He's going to make some plays there. He can't be your best edge rusher.
Of the 4 2022 picks, I think he's clearly the one I'd have the most reservations about paying.
Yes, you cannot, at least at this stage, unless he improves significantly, you're not paying him a top of the market deal. Like you can't. Like he's nowhere near that caliber.
So now we need to already get to a must-win game in week 2 against Will Levis and the Tennessee Titans, old Billy Jeans and the Titans, who it's funny because they lost to the Bears 24-17. Levis threw – I actually like Levis, I think, more than most. I think there's something actually there to work with, but he threw 2 of the worst interceptions you'll ever see.
Dude,
lose that
game. The screenshot of him like being like
surrender this. Cobra on his knees.
Yeah,
it's literally the meme. He fell to his knees in Soldier Field. So but by the way, this was a scoregami. This is the only 32-19 game in NFL history. So there you go. But
really, let's go. That's hype.
This is the only one. But what it was lost in all that is, I know rookie quarterback and all, the Titans defense did not give up any points, which by definition is as good as a defense can play in particular week. And they just traded for Ernest Jones. They spent a lot of money there. T'Vondre Sweat looked great. The rookie defensive tackle. He looked fantastic, just shutting down the running game.
Yeah, and Jeffrey.
This is a real team. I know the strength is the wide receivers, and that's the Jets' strength is the corners. And I know Levis is probably not going to have as good a game as Purdy did, just because younger quarterback, inaccurate for the most part. But this is not just, all right, I know that was a tough game, then we're going to go and beat up on a cream puff and get to 1-1. This is not that.
No.
Like, the Jets could easily lose this game. I don't think they will, but I would not be floored if they did. Be surprised, but I would not be floored, because I think Tennessee has actually a stronger nucleus than people are giving it credit for. And although a lot of it depends on Levis, I think a lot of their pieces kind of shined against the Bears.
Yeah, the Jets are not at the stage where they can be looking past any opponent. The Jets can play the Panthers next week, and I'd still say,
man, all right, you can look past that.
I'm not going to look past any game. I don't think the Jets have given.
I will happily look past the Carolina Panthers. That was like class action lawsuit bad.
The Panthers are abysmal. They're so bad. But I'm not going to give the Jets any benefit of the doubt right now. Like prove it, man. Like prove that you could beat up on bad teams, because you just got beat up on tonight by a really good team. So prove that you could beat up on bad teams. I'm not sure they can right now. I think they have the potential to do that, but I don't know. We haven't seen it. We haven't really seen that in the Robert Saleh era. Obviously, it's hard to beat up on bad teams when your quarterback is Zach Wilson or Tim Boyle or Trevor Siemian or Mike White or Joe Flacco or whoever, right? It's hard to do that. But I don't know. I want to see them prove that they can do that. I will say, very golden opportunity here for a bounce back game for the defensive line, because that Titans offensive line is not particularly good. I think this needs to be a big Quinn Williams game. It needs to be a big Jermaine Johnson game. Like the Titans O-line is a problem, and I think the Jets D-line really needs to have a bounce back performance.
And I think they will. I think that Levis is probably going to turn the ball over, because I know they got DeAndre Hopkins and Calvin Ridley, but DJ Reed, Michael Carter, who appears okay, Sauce Gardner.
Yep.
What do you know? The concern that I have is Jordan Mason just looked like Christian McCaffrey. Yeah. Tony Pollard, I think, is a measure better than Jordan Mason.
You would think.
What's he going to do?
And Tyjae Spears is good too.
Tyjae Spears is good too.
Pollard was primarily the guy that they used in week 1. But yeah, that run defense is a real problem. And there's no reason that Lloyd Cushenberry and whoever else is starting on that Titans offensive line.
J.C. Latham.
I guess J.C. Latham I can see.
Peter Skoronski, I think, is there.
Skoronski, yeah. And then I don't even know who's the right side of that. Nick Petit-Frere for the Ohio State guy. And then Dylan.
I remember he was okay, but,
That's not an offensive. It's a very young offensive line, first of all. It's not an offensive line that should be pushing around the Jets defensive line. Like that, you can't have that happen. So if the run defense gets gashed again, week 2, we are panic mode. We are in panic mode, because you can be like, all right, look, the 49ers, their offensive line might not be great, but Kyle Shanahan always gets the most out of his running backs. They always have a good running game. And then even if the offensive line might not be great on paper, they find ways to run the ball down teams' throat. That is, the 49ers have done that for a long time. If the Tennessee Titans
did that, for crying out loud.
Right. If the Tennessee Titans do that with Tony Pollard and a not good offensive line, we are going to have a real problem on our hands. Like that is going to be a major, major issue. And again, I don't see a fix. At that point, trade for a defensive tackle. Screw Devontae Adams. You need a D tackle. Like, you need someone who can defend the run, because that's
Al Woods.
Bring back Al Woods. Have a revenge game against his former team. That'd be fun.
Yeah, it's because the Jets have an opportunity. You look at this schedule. I'm not going to be – I know you said they're not in a position to look past people, but could you get an easier 4-game stretch than Titans, Patriots, Broncos, Vikings, 2 of which are at home?
Yeah, I mean, you could play like the Giants and Panthers, but I agree.
They should win all of those games.
Yes. The Jets –
then I'm going to be honest, they play Buffalo Monday night after that. Then after that, it's Pittsburgh, New England again.
Yeah.
That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 games. They should win 6 of them. Buffalo up in the air. Even if you lose that at home, I'll give you Buffalo. They should be favorites in 6 games in a row.
Yeah.
If they're 5, even if you don't win all of them, the worst you can be out of that, the worst, and me still take you seriously, is 2 losses. That's what I'm giving you. I'll give you 1.
And that's why I'm not losing my mind over this week 1 loss to a great 49ers team. Because it's still like there's so much football left to be played.
I just will say though too, I know we're talking great 49ers. Like they're not like
they're great.
They're not the 72 like they're not this invincible amazing team. Like they're beatable. They're difficult, but it's not like 07 Patriots where everybody just laid down and died before them. Like
I think the 49ers are the best roster in the NFL.
Yeah, but just not in a way where they're like, well, we got no chance against these guys.
No,
like,
it's not that they had no chance, but probably the toughest matchup possible was a road matchup against the best roster in the NFL. I know they didn't have Christian McCaffrey, and I know a couple of Talanoa Hufanga's hurt. Like, they had a couple of, obviously, Dre Greenlaw is out maybe for the year, but it was a really tough first week. It was a really tough matchup. Like, I'm not going to lose my mind and say that the sky is falling because they lost. Like, there are other teams also lost in pretty bad fashion. I mean, look at the Bengals. Imagine being the Bengals right now. Like, imagine the Jets lost.
They always do that in the year. They're always like September, they're the worst team in the league, and then they win like 9 games in a row in December, and they get in the playoffs. And
then nothing happens.
That's their thing.
But yeah, I mean,
Zach Wilson would beat the September Bengals consistently.
Well, when was the Mike White game? That was October, right?
That was October.
Yeah, it was October.
That was the year they went to the Super Bowl, and Mike White diced him up 400 yards.
But yeah, I said this earlier in the show. We're going to learn a lot more about who this Jets team is and if they're true contenders, if they are serious contenders, or if everyone is going to get fired at the end of the year over the next few weeks. These next 2, 3, 4 weeks, that is going to be the telling sign, not week 1. Week 1 was a step back. It was a step back after an offseason that we thought was a step in the right direction, and week 1 was a step back. But there are 16 more games to be played, and we're going to see what happens over the next few weeks if this Jets team is actually for real and worthy of any of the offseason hype that they've gotten over the last 2 off seasons now.
I mean, the reason that there was hype was I think we individually liked a lot of the acquisitions they made, but if you look at them, Olaf Fashanu didn't play. Mm-hmm. Mike Williams might as well not played.
Hassan Reddick didn't play.
Hassan Reddick, obviously, it's like we like the additions and then none of them play. So yeah, that's the problem. We like the additions and they play 0 snaps.
The biggest additions were Aaron Rodgers, who I'm going to count him as an addition because he did not play. Aaron Rodgers and the offensive line.
Tyron Smith, I thought was pretty good for most of the game.
Just Morgan Moses was fine. Like I just the offensive line was night and day compared to last year. And that's what you'd expect. I mean, they used 14 different offensive linemen last year. You would expect.
And there's no Zach Wilson holding the ball either.
That, but also the pass protection just held up. Like the O-line sucked last year. Wilson sucked, but the O-line also was bad. But again, that's what you expect when you're pulling guys off the street. Xavier Newman was pulled off the street and started a game at a position he didn't fucking play. Like that's bad.
And they won that game.
And they won. Chris Glazer pulled off the street. Jake Hansen pulled off the street. I mean, they were playing guys who would just on other teams. Like
I think you played for a couple snaps.
I might have been out there. You could have fooled me. I could have been. I have no idea. Like it was bad. But now, like that those were your like big offseason additions. And I think at least in week 1, those were really positive additions. Like I think that the offensive line looked night and day, and obviously Aaron Rodgers, he's Aaron Rodgers, man. Like he is still Aaron Rodgers. So we'll see with the other additions. But
I just think that would be peak like Jets curse things if it's like they get this team of, man, this roster is loaded. They just need a quarterback, and then they get the quarterback, and
that's what it feels like. That's why it's such a weird feeling, because like I feel more optimism because it feels different. Like last year, I mean, obviously Rodgers went down. That was the cause of the pessimism. But even after that, it was like, man, this roster is so good, but they just don't have a quarterback. Now it's like, ooh, they have a quarterback, but the roster might be a little overrated. The roster might not be what we thought it was. That's a weird feeling. Like I don't know how to fully process that, but I do know this is a quarterback-driven league, and I do know if you have a good quarterback, you're more than often going to have a chance to win most games, unless you're playing the 49ers. So that leaves me to have some optimism, and I want to see this Jets team, Mike. I want to see them beat up on bad teams. I want to see them.
Why? They just never do.
I want to see them go against Tennessee, the home opener against Tennessee, and I want to see them blow them out.
They're not at home.
When is the home? Is week 3?
Thursday night, New England.
This is what happens when I'm away, when the schedule's dropped. I just forget what the schedule is. Okay. Wow, that's crazy. I forgot they don't open the home.
3 games in 10 days. That's tough.
It is tough. But okay, I want to see them go into Nashville. I want to see them go into the rock and roll capital of the world. That's what they call Nashville, right? I want to see them go. All right, what is Nashville?
Country music
capital or whatever. I want to see them go into Nashville, home of Keith Urban, probably. Don't check that. I don't know. Don't fact check me.
Too late. I'm already doing it.
Don't fact check me. Damn it. Home of Billy Ray Cyrus.
Whoa, he's born in New Zealand. Okay, we were never getting that.
Keith Urban is a Kiwi? Are you serious?
He's born in New Zealand. Yeah.
All right. Point is.
Oh, okay. Wow, he's married to Nicole Kidman. I am learning so much about Keith Urban.
It's something about when we
not even close. Not even the right hemisphere.
Something about when we hit the hour mark. Shit goes off the rails. I want to see them go into Nashville, the hot chicken capital of the world. You're not going to fucking fact check me on that. The hot chicken capital of the world, and I want to see them blow the doors off the Titans. I want to see them blow them out of the building, get them out of there, laugh them out of their own stadium. That's what I want to see, man. Then the Jets. Then I'll be like, okay, we're back. Like the Jets might be contenders, but if they
lose to New England,
But if they go in there and they squeak out like if the defense looks bad again against Tennessee, man, we got real issues. If it's like
Justin, I don't want to look too far ahead. If Jacoby Brissett beats Aaron Rodgers at home in the home opener,
yeah, that would suck.
I think you're putting it. I don't think you're realizing quite what would happen to my brain.
I think Jacoby Brissett is currently a better quarterback than Will Levis. So. Yeah, if they lose to Will Levis, that's just as bad, if not worse. Like I want to see a decisive win. This was a decisive loss. You rebound with a decisive win. I don't want to see a 27-24 nail biter where Greg Zuerlein has to kick a game-winning field goal because the run defense was getting gashed by Tony Pollard. I don't want to see that shit. I don't want that. I'll be happy. We'll come on the podcast. We'll be like, a win's a win, but I'll be really happy. I'll be very confident if you get a decisive win.
Well, we as the Jets always do, they always listen to us and give us a lot of things to cheer about because they're the Jets who they just love. So thank you guys, by the way, for tuning in. We got a lot. It's late on the East Coast. It is past midnight, and a lot of you guys stayed up for that. Thank you so much for doing that. Jets are 0-1 again, familiar territory perhaps, but Aaron Rodgers had some Aaron Rodgers moments, and if you want to look at this as a pseudo preseason game to get everybody up to speed, then Aaron Rodgers looks okay. And if you want to be positive, because being a Jets fan is not a positive thing that you should encourage people to do. It's harmful to your health. But if you want to do that, there's your positivity. And we have week 2 and a very winnable game against Tennessee. So thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be streaming on Wednesday, which is, I guess, technically tomorrow since it's Tuesday now. Previewing all that stuff, talking probably about Hassan Reddick again because it's going to come up in the next couple of days after that whole thing. We will be there. We may have some special guests too. But in the meantime,
true.
You could subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. You can find us there. And we're on YouTube. Subscribe there. Like. All big helps. Justin, 0-1. Same record as the Panthers. How are we feeling?
I think we're getting a little too optimistic. I think we need to take us down a peg or two because Lou Sassel here in chat on YouTube says Tyrod's going to be the starter sooner than later. Second worst money spent behind Watson. Yeah, that was
Daniel Jones.
That was definitely my takeaway. Is that Aaron Rodgers was the problem tonight? That was definitely my takeaway. I saw somebody else on Twitter being like, "Oh, it's not. You can't blame Zach now." And I'm like, "Yeah, man. That was my takeaway.
Tyrod looked better even against their bench. A 32-13 game with the backups in is totally the way to evaluate quarterbacks. So, yeah, good idea. See how it works for you.
I honestly wish we saw these comments earlier in the show.
Ryan Nassib was like 9 of 10 with a touchdown. His only action. Why didn't they make Ryan Nassib a starter? He looked good against backups.
That was the equivalent of playing preseason, like that last drive. That was the equivalent of a preseason drive.
Not even, yeah.
But yeah, clearly the takeaway is that Aaron Rodgers is the problem. But anyway.
Well, that's what's going to be the takes on all the shows. You know that.
Lou should go on those shows then. But yeah, anyway, we really do appreciate everyone joining in. We will be streaming live after every single Jets game this year. They're always fun to do. I wish we had a little bit more optimism to talk about after this game. I was really hoping we can just come on and be like, Jets are back, baby. Same old Jets is dead. But here we are. But
Jets alive and well until proven otherwise.
Appreciate everyone who commented. Appreciate everybody who tuned in. Thank you all for joining us on the show today. You can follow Mike on Twitter at by Mike Luciano. Follow me on Twitter at Justin T. Freed. Follow Jet Press at the Jet Press. Download Jet Press Podcast wherever you get podcasts. Check us out on YouTube, TikTok, subscribe, like, notification bell, all that stuff, whatever you guys know what to do. We stream live every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time and live immediately following every single Jets game. Thank you all for listening to Jet Press Podcast. I've been Justin Freed. That's been Mike Luciano. Good night, Brian, and good night, everyone else. We will see you guys on Wednesday.
Yes, we will. Hopefully 1-1. We hope for 1-0. Didn't get it. Maybe 1-1. We're not asking for as much now this time. Maybe that's the key.